In the last video or in the last lesson, we were talking about qualitative data and looking at how to organize that data into a categorical frequency distribution and then using that frequency distribution to create bar graphs and pie charts, which are kind of the standards with organizing and analyzing data within the realm of statistics. And if you don't have a really large data set, doing it by hand, as we did in that particular video, is okay. But if you begin working with hundreds or thousands of data values, then you may want to have some sort of technology to help you create that categorical frequency distribution and the bar graphs and the pie charts. And so we're going to take a look at, and this will be your first exposure to the technology that we're going to be using throughout the course, and it's called Minitab. So hopefully you've purchased it and got it downloaded onto your computer. And we're going to use the same example that we used in the last video so you can kind of see how it connects and relates. So we begin, as we do with any research, with our research question, which was or is, what is the most popular county of residence of Georgia Highlands College students enrolled in spring 2016? So we've posed our question clearly and with as much detail as possible so that we can identify the variable, the population, the parameter, the sample, and so forth. So the variable in this case, what we want to know about is the county of residence, it is a qualitative variable, which means it's neither discrete nor continuous, and it's nominal because living in one county is not necessarily better than living in another. The population is all Georgia Highlands College students enrolled in spring 2016. The sample is all students enrolled in 4 different sections of Math 2200 at GHC in spring 2016 on the Cartersville campus. It was this cluster sampling technique because you had different sections and you did all the students in each section. It is random because any student could have registered for those 4 sections. Representative, there's probably some question because we're only considering students from the Cartersville campus. Ideally, it would have been better had you had students from each GAC campus, including online. But we have what we have. And so then we went out, or at least I did, and collected the raw data. So we have our list of raw data. And again, we've looked at how to do it by hand, but how could we do this in Minitab? Well, guys, anytime you're doing research, that research has to begin with data. And so the first thing that we need to do is enter this list of county of residences into Minitab. Now, Minitab, quite honestly, looks very much like Microsoft Excel. It is a spreadsheet. If you open up your Minitab, you have kind of a work area here at the top of the screen where you see the logo for Minitab. Then at the bottom, you have a spreadsheet. Again, very much like what you would see in Excel. One of the differences is with Minitab, you have this extra line here, kind of in this gray area, where you're able to put your label. So for example, I would label this column here, county of residence, and then I would simply start typing the data that I had on that slide, which I've already done to kind of save us some time, but you just type and enter, next word, and enter. When you're looking at this list on the PowerPoint, it does not matter whether you enter it going down the column or whether you go across the column. Okay, the idea is you need to get all of the data entered. Watch your spelling. If you capitalize the first letter, you want to continue to do that. Sometimes Minitab is very case specific, so you want to keep it capitalized all the way through, all that kind of stuff to help limit the problems. So I've entered all 50 of those, just like you would enter it into an Excel spreadsheet. One of the other things about Minitab is notice how now this column is labeled C1-T. I'm going to make a note about this on the next slide. I made a note here about how you label the column with the variable name. So I labeled it county of residence, and we typed in each response into the column. Well, notice that now that column is labeled C1-T. Minitab's brain is smart enough to recognize that this column contains qualitative data, that it contains words. The letter T here stands for text, or in other words, it recognizes that you have words or qualitative data. And if you try to do some sort of numerical calculation, like trying to add those values up and find the average, Minitab's not going to let you do it. So it kind of helps to keep you from making an error. Now, I do have listed on the PowerPoint here the steps you go through, but I'm going to visually show you the clicks in Minitab. So we've entered our data. Then at the top, again, similar to Excel, you have your different menus. You have File, Edit, Data, Calc, which stands for Calculate, Stat or Statistics, Graph, View, Help, and Assistant. So I'm going to go to Stat and click. I'm going to scroll down to tables, because remember, essentially a frequency distribution is a table. So I scroll down to tables and I want to choose tally individual variables. Okay, so I'm going to choose that. And then a pop-up window comes up and it walks you through entering the information that's needed. It wants to know, what variable do you want me to tally? Well, right now I only have one variable in there, so I want to do county of residence. Notice I just double clicked on it and it automatically populated for me. I want it to display for me the counts as well as the percents. Okay, so I want counts and percents. I check those two boxes and I click OK. And almost immediately when I do that, in the display window, you're going to see basically your categorical frequency distribution. Okay, so I had a total of 50 data values. 23 were from Bartow, 6 students from Cherokee, 10 from Cobb, 2 from Gordon, and 9 from Paulding. This count here, guys, represents the frequency, and the percent, it doesn't have the percent symbol, but it's labeled percent, and the percent represents your relative frequency. So I copied that onto the next slide, and again, I'm going to make you a few notes here so that when you go to look at it, you'll know how to interpret it. Again, this column labeled count is what we previously referred to as the frequency, and the column that is labeled percent is what we previously called relative frequency. So I very quickly now could, copy and paste this into a Word document or into my report that I would need perhaps for my employer or whoever I am conducting the research for. Short and sweet, very easy, again, very similar to doing something on a spreadsheet. We can also create the 2 graphs that we talked about that are related to qualitative data. For qualitative data, the 2 graphs are a bar chart or a pie chart. And again, we could do those by hand using, but we'd have to get out our ruler and our protractor, possibly our markers or colored pencils. So guys, most people today use some sort of technology to create those items, very easy. And so Minitab will do that for us. So again, you would still have to begin, if you did not, you would have to begin by entering the data into Minitab. Well, the data is already there. We've already entered it. So I don't need to do that a second time, unless of course you've deleted it or erased it, but it's already there. So let's walk through, and I have the instructions on the PowerPoint slides for you, but I want to create a graph. So I go to Graph, and the type graph I want to create is a bar chart. So I choose bar chart. And then I want the bars to represent the counts of unique values, the unique values from my chart. That's the default. Leave it as the default. We're just doing a very simple bar chart. That's the default. Leave it alone. And I click OK. And again, it asks me for which variable do you want me to create a bar chart of. Now again, we only have one data value or one data set in there at the moment. I'm going to click on it, double click, and it automatically populates. Now, the next step is probably one of the most important, because you should never have a graph that doesn't have labels on it. Okay, so I'm going to choose the option of labels, and I can give it a title. This particular graph is about county of residence for GHC students in spring 2016. When you give it a title, again, you want to think about who, what, where, when, give it as much detail as possible. So that lets me, I can automatically go ahead and fill in the title. The axes, the horizontal axis and the vertical axis, will be defaulted to whatever you've named your column of data, and then use the word, I believe, frequency. Let's see. Okay, so I've got my title in there. I've picked my variable. I'm going to say OK. And it creates for me this particular bar graph. Notice it has the title that I gave it. It says county of residence. It automatically used the label that I had for the column as the horizontal axis label. It says count again instead of frequency, but again it has the vertical bars there. Now, so there is your bar chart. Again, very nice, reasonably, everything's straight. It's not colored or anything, but that's fine. It's a nice chart, very easy, and we can see very quickly, looking at the chart, that Bartow had the most, Cobb was second, then I believe Paulding. I mean, you can begin to think about the order that they occurred in, which one occurred the most, which one occurred the least. So again, you get lots of information from that bar graph. The second graph that you can create in Minitab that is applicable to qualitative data is a pie chart. And so again, it's a graph. Guys, Minitab is very intuitive. It's a graph. So I've entered my data. I'm going to graph. This time I want to do a pie chart. I want to do chart counts of unique values. Okay, that's the default. Again, it asks me, what variable do you want me to do? So I put my mouse on it, double click, it automatically populates into the blank. And again, it's important that you put the labels, and there's a little bit more to it with a pie chart. Okay, so again, we go in, we're going to give it a title, again thinking about who, where, what, that kind of thing. So again, we were doing county of residence for GHC students, and it was spring 2016. Now, here's the extra step for a pie chart. I'd like to know what those percentages are. And if I'm just looking at as a slice of the pie, I may not be able to tell that. So if I click on the other tab labeled Slice Labels, I want it to do the category name, the percent, and I want it to draw a line to the slice so that I'll know exactly these words go with this particular slice. Okay, so you have to toggle between the two tabs, but you want to do category name, percent, and draw a line. And then I tell it okay. I tell it okay. And again, at the top of my screen in my work area, I have my pie chart. The pie charts are colored. Notice you have your kind of key or your code over here to the right. But also now I can say, okay, this blue region is Bartow and it's 46%. The orange is Paulding and it's 18%. So you can kind of see again, and you can export those to a Word document. I exported it and put it here on the PowerPoint, and again, so very easily without a whole lot of effort, you get a very nice pie chart and can see that how the different counties are related to the whole. And that kind of gives you a sense of how to use Minitab to create a categorical frequency distribution, a bar graph, and a pie chart.